E onde vamos? This way. Okay. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Speak up. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنات عرشه ومداد كلماته ومنتهى علمه جمع مشاعة وخلق وضرع وبرع عالم الغيب شهادة الرحمن الرحيم المالك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك له الحمد يحيي ويميت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وحبيبه وخليله وأرسله بهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على دين كله لو كرهات المشركين. أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So,
Mike,
uh,
you speak because they can't hear you in the back.
can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Let me see if I can keep this like this, inshallah, so it can be heard.
Turn this way.
Inshallah. Young bucks come off of the wall. Make a line like as you're using Juma, inshallah.
The wall is for 50 plus.
All right, so inshallah, the title of my lecture is about becoming a better Muslim. And the text is centered around what the scholars call Kisalatul Istiqamah, the traits of uprightness. Kisalatul Istiqamah, about having traits of uprightness. They still can hear me? It might be the speakers or something. I was speaking into it. You can hear it. Get closer.
Kareem, turn it up. Yeah. Kareem.
All right. Is that good? Can you guys hear me now? Is it better? Okay. So what I was mentioning is what is called Kisalatu Istiqamah, right? Traits of uprightness. And the word is constantly used throughout the Quran and throughout Hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where the man asked the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam about his belief. He says, Amantu Billah. He told him and instructed him to say, Amantu Billah, I believe in Allah. And then after that, Thumma Istiqamah, be straight, upright. So traits of uprightness. And so what is known is from this, there's 15 traits that has been categorized into 15 traits, but we're not going to talk about 15 today. We're going to talk about, because of the time we push it, maybe another time we can go over all 15 of them. But this time, I tend to focus on three. And the reason why you pick this particular topic, because now is Ramadan and you have the attention of the people during Ramadan, and we want to try to do better. And what we do in Ramadan, we want to take it with us outside of Ramadan. So therefore, you want to come out better, right? And that means that moving forward, you're going to do better. And so what these things that we're discussing, because remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran about Ramadan, kutiba alaykum siyam, fasting is prescribed, mandated for you, the same way it was for those who were before you, right? La'allakum tattaqun, in order for you to gain taqwa. So this all goes hand in hand. In order to increase your taqwa, you have to learn those traits of uprightness. So you can't do one without the other, right? So anyway, The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first trait that we're going to mention is about ilm, knowledge. The hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, وَمَثَلُ عِلْمٍ لَا ينتفع به كمثل كنز لا ينفق منه في سبيل الله. The likeness of knowledge with no benefit is equivalent to a treasure which is not spent in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Because knowledge, not only knowledge, you just get knowledge, but you have to, it has to be knowledge that's nafi, knowledge that's beneficial, meaning it's something you benefit from, something that makes you move, makes you change, it shakes and bakes, it moves you, right? Like when someone learns, something like how to move bitcoins, right? You learn how to move bitcoins, you can learn to make money off of Bitcoin. And the first time you make money off your Bitcoin, you're motivated, right? It's the same way knowledge is even greater because it moves you. Not only does it move you, but the end result is that you're seeking Jannah, right? Not only you changing in the dunya, meaning as a result of you gaining that beneficial knowledge, but also it leads you to Jannah. These are upright traits, also are traits of that will lead you to the path of paradise. So success is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ikhwan, know that it's first obligatory upon you to seek knowledge, right? Because if you know better, you do better. This is due to the fact that all things are dependent upon knowledge. And realize that knowledge and ibadah are two essential fundamentals. And it's due to knowledge and worship that the divine books were revealed and the messengers were sent. Because what you learn from each of the revelations was knowledge that you learned about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about the messengers, about the akhirah, right? And then you also learn the laws, the fiqh, those things pertaining to the sharia, right? And so therefore, it's incumbent upon the servant of Allah Ta'ala to possess some share of each of these two important matters. Now, there's a thing that you have to realize with knowledge. Everyone's not meant to be this great high alim, right? Because your knowledge, like Allah Ta'ala mentions about you being raised, according to your darajat, according to your level, it'll be uh you'll be risen up according to that level, what you put in. And the two things is knowledge and ibadah, right? A person that's knowledgeable is not just being able to quote, because Shaitan quotes everything. Shaitan been around for every revelation. He's been misguiding and whispering to people from day one, right? So he knows the reality, right? So that's not just having knowledge, but having knowledge that's nafi, that's beneficial, knowledge that you act on. And then your ibadah, your worship, right? Not only just taking care of your five pillars, but also doing those extra things where you're outside of Ramadan, when you're fasting. The 6 days of Shawwal is coming up. Fasting Mondays and Thursdays, or the fast of Dawood, or praying Tajdid, praying Witr, praying your Sunnah rakahs, reading the Quran, doing Khatam al Quran. These things are acts of ibadah, and it elevates the servant, Allah Ta'ala's slave. It raises his rank, and he'll become, where he'll be in favor, where Allah Ta'ala will favor him, and then he'll cause creation to love you as well, right? So that knowledge and ibadah, those two things. But you have to have knowledge in order to gain sound ibadah, because you're only motivated to do those things that was mentioned about fasting and praying and giving sadaqah and things of that nature, only by you acquiring knowledge. Now, so therefore, it is incumbent upon the servant to possess some share of these two matters. However, sound worship can never be acquired except by the means of knowledge. And it is for this reason that it's necessary to give ilm nafi, to give ilm nafi preference over worship. So if you had to choose the two paths, which path is the best, right? It'll always be leaning towards knowledge, because knowledge will make you do more ibadah, right? It's not the opposite. You don't worship Allah Ta'ala in ignorance. If you worship Allah Ta'ala in ignorance without having knowledge of what you're doing, it can what's the word that I want to use? It can basically make your actions fruitless, right? Think about it. What's the first pillar in Islam? See, we can talk. This ain't a khutbah, so I'm a little interactive. What's the first pillar in Islam? Shahada, right? So, and this is something that you have on an regular basis. I interact with a lot of non-Muslims, right? And I'm pretty sure some of you guys probably interact with them too. And they'll say, Ramadan, I'm gonna fast with you guys as well, right? Now them fast in Ramadan, sometimes we be like, okay, alhamdulillah, that's good. But we always in that statement, what? Y'all gotta make sure y'all take shahada though, right? You want to get the full benefit of fasting, you gotta make sure you get, take shahada. Yeah, you'll get some medicinal use from it. Maybe you lose a couple pounds or something like that. But however, the main benefit that you want to gain out of the thing is that what? You want to get the blessing, the reward from it. So fasting is no good without shahada, right? So the same way is that's worship. You're preferring ignorance over worship. If you're fasting, you don't have shahada. Fasting without praying, right? Praying is essential to the Muslim. You can't abandon one for the other, right? One don't make one better than the other. It has to be kept in its sequences, kept in its order, because these are the things that was commanded by Allah Ta'ala and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, so knowledge in order to turn faces of people towards him, then his trade has become unprofitable. And this happens when you gain knowledge, people are looking to you, yeah, shit. Let me ask you, and you be like, man, I ain't no shake, I'm just a milkshake and all that, but you can't never shut up. You always gotta answer a question, right? I always got something to say. Men came from far all over the Western Hemisphere, to see Imam Malik, right? And asked Imam Malik 44 questions, and he only answered three. And they said, well, you're supposed to be the great Imam Malik. What do I go back and tell my people? You tell them Imam Malik don't know. Right? So, this happens when you're seeking knowledge. You just always got something to say. You're always in somebody's business. You're always in the mix, right? When you understand the true depth of knowledge, knowledge actually makes you become more cautious when you speak. You don't become silent. You speak with caution. You don't just blurt everything out. A person that has some sort of character to them, they're very cautious of what they speak. They're limited in their words and they use their words wisely, right? To benefit people. A person who's not cautious, they're reckless. They're reckless with their tongue. They're always caught up in backbiting, lying, slandering, just always saying something, right? So anyway, the sicknesses within the heart that undermine the benefit of knowledge is ghilla, hatred, hasad, right? Envy, kibr, right? Pride, riyah, showing off, ujub, conceit, hubbu dunya, love for this dunya, right? So these are some of the things that will undermine sound knowledge, right? These sicknesses, it gets it, and this is why you see it so chaotic today, right? So anyway, you have to learn those knowledges that are individually obligatory upon you, as the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam he said, وَطَلِبُ عِلْمًا فَرِيدَةُ عَلَى كُلِّ Muslim. Right? Seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. And in here, the word that's given the focus on is al-ilm. See, if it was just any type of knowledge, like sometimes we try to stretch the understanding of this hadith to just any old type of knowledge, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would have said ilmun. But he said al-ilm, where he put the definitive, the aleph lam before the word knowledge, and so that means specific, right? And that specific knowledge is talking about those things that are incumbent upon you to know. That's a priority first, right? Like learning about the shahada, about the salat, the rules, regulations connected to it with wudu, ghusl, tayammum, and so on and so forth. Fasting, knowing the rules of fasting, the obligations, the sunnahs of fasting, right? Zakat, how to pay it, the rules, the obligations, and the sunnahs as well, right? Hajj, having to know that, buying and selling, because you got to make money, right? Buying and selling, marriage and divorce, like how to get married, how to get divorced, right? You're not telling nobody how to get divorced to break their home up, but just knowing that it's proper, because as an imam, I've seen plenty of things in this city that's been real crazy with some ideas that people have about knowledge, about marriage and divorce. And you'd be like, where did you learn that at? Well, somebody told me such and such. So you have to know these particular things. And also, a thing to keep in mind is that a thing doesn't become obligatory upon you until you're about to undertake that particular matter, right? So I just want to mention that with regards to knowledge. Like I said, we're a little pressed for time. So I'm gonna try to summarize it as much as possible, inshallah. And hopefully everybody get benefit from it. If I'm moving too fast, stop me. All right, tell me slow down a little bit. So after knowledge, after knowledge, the second trait that you want to immediately go to, or the second characteristic or action that you want to go to immediately after that is tawbah. right? That's where you want to go. That's the next place you want to go. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned in the hadith in Tirmidhi, he said, "Kullu bani Adam خطأ وخير خطائين التوابون." The Prophet ﷺ said, the children of Adam are all sinners, right? But the best of the sinners are those who make tawbah, who repent, right? So when you make an error, you get right. A lot of times, I tell you, I promise you, Ramadan, for a lot of people, it's like a reset button, right? But don't make it every year that it's your reset button, but let it be that like a catapult to boost you into doing greater things than you done last year. You don't want to come to every Ramadan starting at the same spot, right? Because every Ramadan when you come and you're starting at the same spot, you may grow, but you're not going to grow a whole lot. Versus the person that uses Ramadan to start to get to the next Ramadan, and he's accomplished all of this, and he looks at it, and looks back at it, and like, subhanallah, I know I can do this more. Now I can do more than this, right? I can take it to the next level, right? So anyway, so he says, realizing may Allah Ta'ala be merciful to us, that tawbah is a veil for our foul actions. It's a source of purity from our filthy sins. It also eradicates your past errors if you sincerely repented, right? And it'll make the future more promising. What does that mean? Because with tawbah, right, Allah Ta'ala may erase those errors that you've done, and which makes the future brighter, is that Allah Ta'ala will maybe forgive you and allow you to enter Jannah without full account for every action that you've done, right? So this is why tawbah is important. Every sin that you commit, from the time you become mukallaf up until that time you reach death, when the time you become legally responsible, right? When you become a mature young man and young woman, right? And that's not the age of 18 or 21, right? There's certain signs when you hit puberty, the signs of puberty. That's when you become mukallaf. That's when the Raqib and Atid become your companion now. Now they are recording those two angels that's with every last one of us, right? Every little thing that you do, right? Those things that are benefit will benefit you, and the gain on the right side, it'll be on the right side, right? Because there's a particular event that happens in the afterlife. It's called Uti al-Kitab. Allah talks about it in the Quran, right? When you're giving your scrolls, right? And there's three ways the scrolls are going to be given to people, each and every one of us, all of us. Now it's all a matter. May Allah Ta'ala protect us, from being the last two that I'm going to mention, and allow us to be the first one that I'm going to mention. I mean, right? Because the first one that I'm mentioning is, if you're a person of good actions, right? A person of hasanat, a person that will enter paradise, you will receive your scroll with your right hand, right? You'll be ashabul yamin. You'll be the person with that right hand, that companion, the right hand with your scroll. You'll be glad to take it, right? This day is greater than you receiving a diploma from your high school or whatever you graduating from. When you graduate, they put the cap and gown on you. They call your name. You go up there with private, your chest out, and you take it, right? You're like, yeah, that's right. Well, with this situation, you'll be proud, right? The other two are not so proud, right? Matter of fact, the last one I'm going to mention is worse than the next one that I'm about to mention now. The person that received his scroll in his left hand, he's a person that has a lot of sayyat, a lot of bad deeds. He's always sinning and never made tawbah for him, right? And this is what tawbah does. Tawbah helps erase that, because those two angels that are with us, they're writing this down, right? And it's also another thing I want to put you on game to. One of the things that you gotta understand, will put you on game, is that we like to talk. The angels write when you talk. Those things that are beneficial goes on the right side. So if you subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar. Those things are those alaykum salam to the those statements, those are statements of benefit, right? When you're constantly talking about the Eagles, the new Tesla, Trump, President 4, 5, 6, and 7, all of those things, they go on the left side. There's no in the middle. There's no mundane, just idle talk. Idle talk is talk that works against you. So that's what I'm saying. When you know better, you do better, right? Well, a person, he gets knowledge of these things, then the person is very cautious on how they speak. They don't just speak on everything. They're very cautious, right? Now, this last person, which if your mind is working right now, you'd be like, well, who's worse than the person that's receiving the scroll on the left side? This person. Because this person, he's going to have the same punishment that the man on the left, that's receiving it on the left hand is going to have. But the thing is that he's treacherous, right? This person, he tries to hide his hands behind his back. So he can't receive the scrolls. But the scrolls will be thrusted through his body and still put in his left hand, and he'll still possess them. So this person is worse than the person that's actually just taking his left hand, taking the scroll in the left hand, and like, yo, it is what it is, right? Now, I ain't saying that like it's that light. Saying it is what it is. I'm not saying it like it's that light, because this is a terrifying day. Yom Qiyamah, it'll be full of tears, sweat, and blood, right? Where you're standing. And you'll be questioned about every little thing you've done, every time that you fornicated, every time you told a lie, every time you stole, every time you paid something with some riba, every little thing, every time you was arrogant, every time you envied someone, every time you had hatred for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These things will work against you on that day. And this is what you're fearful of. You'll be afraid, right? It'll be afraid. It'll be nothing but terror that day, right? So much so that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was explaining the Qiyamah, that day of standing, and he was mentioning this to the Sahabas, and he mentioned about how people are sweat profusely, right? They'll run out of sweat. I can't even picture my body running out of sweat, because you run out of sweat in this dunya, you might die, right? They're gonna run out of tears, to the point that tears is gonna end up becoming the blood. They're gonna cry blood, right? And not only that, the thing which, caught the attention of the mother of the believers, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, right? The Prophet ﷺ said that we'll be naked, but we'll be so terrified and worried about what we're about to be punished for that we wouldn't even look at nobody. If you put a bunch of naked men and women together, I promise you, their heads ain't gonna stay straight. Somebody gonna be looking like, right? On that day, that's not happening. On that day, you're so worried about what you did in this dunya. Every little thing that you've done, you will be worried about it on that day. You'll be worried about it on that day. It will be no laughing matter. And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she said, men and women will be like side by side. He said, Aisha, that day will be so terrifying that no one is even going to think about the person standing next to them. Think about it. When you read the Quran, when Allah Ta'ala talks about the Qiyamah, he talks about that babies will be born with a head full of gray hair. The mother that's nursing. Anybody know anything about women that nurse children? And women can attest to this, right? That attachment that child has with the mother is a bond. It's a different type of bond, right? The mother that is nursing the suckling baby, she will throw that baby away on the camera. She don't want nothing to do with it. So think about this is how terrifying and frightening it is. And the only thing that can help you and save you in this case is Tawbah. Tawbah. Tawbah will help you reset your clock. When you think about Tawbah, it's like alhamdulillah, right? It's a breath of fresh air, right? But the thing is that it has to be sincere. There's some things that you have to do to keep it in place. So Tawbah is something that you will hesitate towards, because like Allah Ta'ala, he says in the Quran, he says, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ أَرُوضُهَا, right? أَرُوضُهَا السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Well, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, he says, hasten towards Tawbah, that's maghfirah, that forgiveness from your Lord, and you'll be in a garden, right? The garden, he's talking about Jannah, as wide as the heavens and the earth, right? So after being terrified, it still makes you smile. Because eventually, even if you spend some time in the fire, which may Allah Ta'ala protect all of us from, right? Eventually you'll get paradise. Eventually you'll get paradise. Read the hadith of the last man who came out of the hellfire, right? Read that hadith. If that hadith don't give you hope, I hope I am that man, right? If not, I hope I'm better than that. The last man, he thought he was in the highest level of paradise. And he didn't come with his head up high, right? He said the words that the Prophet ﷺ said, he thought that Allah was mocking him by giving him Jannah. Like, what is this? Like some kind of joke? Are you serious? I'm getting this? Subhanallah. Because you remember when you come out of the fire, you're gonna be a little roasted, right? You're gonna have scars on you, you're gonna be a little toasted. You're gonna have a little like burnt crust, right? So, anyways, so any action in Islam, tawbah, it has some preconditions and it must be fulfilled in order to assure its acceptance and validity. Conditions of tawbah. The first one is that you got to stop doing the sin. Oftentimes, in this, it's kind of cliche. You'd be like, "Oh man, on your Lord forgive us, on your Lord judge us," all that jazzy stuff. That stuff is fly. But the reality is, you got to stop sinning. You got to stop. You can't make no mantras out of it. Even though what we do is wrong and so on and so forth, you can't do all that stuff. Sinning is a serious business. It's serious business. You'll go to hell. It's that serious. And that fire, think about it. I'm gonna give you a little secret. Anytime you think about doing a sin, think about how your body is weak. Right? If you ain't, even if you got time, if you thinking about it, right? It could be the best looking woman or the best looking man in the world. And they're like, "Come on, baby, just come home with me." You like, "Man, I don't know. I just finished making you shit, man. I don't know. I don't know." Right? You fighting it? What I want you to do is take in Google burnt people that are burnt up, right? And you'll look at their skin and how it's all charred and burnt and crispy, right? But there's one thing that you got to remember when you look at this. Many of them are dead. See, when you get burnt in this life, they got the burn unit at Temple, burn unit at this hospital. That hospital, they'll take some skin off of your thigh and put it back on your hand and try to make you look good, right? With in the akhirah, ain't none of that. Ain't no dying, first of all. You're not going to die from 7th-degree burn or 5th-degree burn, 4th degree. None of that. The fire in this dunya is 70 times hotter. The fire in the akhirah is 70 times hotter than the fire in this dunya. What's your reaction when you usually get on something hot? Snatch away, right? Immediately. Ain't no snatching away. There's an angel that's the gatekeeper of hellfire. He got the same name as my Sahaba, right? You got a question? Malik. Nah. He's Malik. And you know what Malik, you know what the people are going to say to Malik? They're going to ask him in the Quran. Allah mentions in the Quran. The people that are going to go to Malik, they're going to be screaming and crying. Malik, it's not like they're like, "Yo, open up, Malik." No, they're going to be screaming in pain and agony. "Malik, oh Malik, Malik, Malik," right? Screaming for years. Not just 1 year, 2 years. Anybody know how many years? Before Malik even replied? 4,000. My mind can't even think that far. Right? 4,000 before he even replied. Before he says what? No. That's the first reply. What? Right? They're begging, they're pleading, they're asking the Lord. They say, "Yo, Malik, please go to Allah, ask him just lightly, just a little, give us something to drink because you're gonna become dehydrated while you're in the hellfire." There's a drink in the hellfire too, right? Now it's a bit graphic, but it's disgusting and it's supposed to be. You know that the ingredients of that drink in hellfire is now it don't taste like Gatorade. It don't taste like Pepsi. It's pus, menstruation blood, right? And it has like these fruits in it that has spikes, right? And you'll be forced to drink it, and it'll rip up your whole insides, destroy, bow everything, right? And the more you drink it, the thirstier you become. So it's like drinking sand, right? There's no escape from that. So anytime you're thinking about sinning, I promise you, think about this. Think about how your body can't handle that. Upon any type of pain, no matter what you do, whatever what you put through, if a person is going through something mentally, eventually the mind breaks down. It shuts down and you go to sleep, right? Or you may even die. There is none of that in the afterlife. This is why the people will be crying. They'll be sweating profusely. They'll be crying blood. They'll be butt naked next to each other and won't even look at each other. The only thing they're worried about is them because they know what's to come, right? The skin will be burnt off of the body. It'll grow back. It'll burn off and it'll grow back. And so they'll still be calling, screaming for Malik. Malik, no, Malik, 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 please help us, right? 4,000 years he comes back? No. Uskutu fiha. Shut up in there. And this will be your state. Now imagine those who die without Shahada. They'll never get out of it. There's no ending in hellfire. There's no ending in paradise. Right? They exist right now. Remember, any time of the year, there's 2 times of the year the Prophet ﷺ talks about. 2 times of the year where the hellfire breathes. Whenever you experience the hottest day in a year in the summertime, know that the hellfire is exhaling. And whenever it's the coldest time in the wintertime, know that the hellfire is exhaling. Keep these things in mind. The more you keep these things further away from you, because remember what we start out with. What's the first characteristic? Knowledge, right? You know better, you're gonna do better. Will you continue to steal from people if you know that you'll be burnt in the fire? No. I see a hand up. You got something to say?
Question.
Uh-huh.
So you said that some people will come out of the hellfire.
Yes.
What's going to happen to the people that don't come out of the hellfire?
They'll be in there forever. Forever. It'll never stop. That'll be their state. That's why it's important to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do what's correct. Now, so anyway, the actions, so you want to avoid doing wrong deeds, right? The second thing is stopping the heart from the desire of returning to the sin. This is the biggest downfall for a lot of people because a lot of us, we don't feel remorse for what we used to do. If you were a guy that had a lot of girls, you're like, man, I used to have all the women back in 66. Right? You just start reminiscing. You get that, what they call it, the word is level. This delicious taste in Arabic. Man, I used to be that guy. I used to be that girl. I used to have all the guys chasing me, right? You start feeling like this. Man, I remember we used to be scamming. We used to swipe everything, bro. We used to get this money. Remember, we used to get the Balenciagas and that. You're still a criminal at heart. Even though your limbs may not be going there, but it's easy for you to switch back over because internally, you're still a criminal at heart. Just give the right opportunity and you're there. That's how a lot of married men and women, they fall for zina. The heart is still there. You want to cheat? All you got to do is fall in love with the person before you even touch him. That's it, it's done. You don't care about end periods. You don't care about nothing. All that stuff is out the window. Just hold on, boo. It's almost over. I'm going to leave him tomorrow. It's in the heart. It's permeated in the heart. You have to stop the heart from loving it. The third thing is avoid participating in the sin in the future. Sometimes if you're a person, right, what sense would it make if you're a person that had a gambling addiction and you haven't been gambling in 10 years, right? 5 years or 10 minutes. But you go hang out at the Sugar House. I don't even think it's called the Sugar House no more. What's that joint called now? Like Riverfront, something like that? The casino down there, something, yeah, Riverboat, something. Yeah, so they changed the name of it. But the bottom line is, why would you go hang out there? A lot of us, we like to go hang in the old neighborhoods where we used to terrorize. Sit on the stoop all day. Yeah, man, I remember the day. And you ain't talking about nothing but mischief. When you read about the lives of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the things they used to do, like Omar he laughed about the fact, right? Because Omar used to worship, what was it? A twig, Malik? A date, right?
He used to worship a god, but he made it into
a twig or something like that with a date.
With a date tree.
He got hungry and ate his God one day. he got hungry and ate his God. Right? He laughed about it. He wasn't feeling good about that, but he laughed. But it was only that laugh. It was humorous for that moment. But when you think about it, man, how could I worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? All right. So you want to avoid uh being in, engaging in the sin, in the near future. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, now I'm gonna summarize. So in summary, in translation, Allah Ta'ala, he says that repentance is not accepted, right? ليست التوبة للذين يعلمون السيئات حتى إذا حضر أحدهم الموت قال إني تبت الآن ولا الذين يموتون وهم كفار, right? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says that repentance is not accepted from those who continue to do evil deeds up until death. You hear that? That's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawbah will not be accepted if you're constantly in it until death takes over you. If you stop it before you die, who knows when they're going to die in here? Anybody know?
We're not going to know. Only Allah knows.
Exactly. I like you. Alhamdulillah. Exactly. So we ain't got time to delay Tawbah. That's the whole point of this ayah. So then the fourth is restoring back the act of injustice, Radha Mudhalim, right? And there's three divisions to this, and I'm going to try to keep it brief as possible because the main thing I wanted to get to, I'm about to now. The first one is if one is that a person leaves their obligation, intentionally missing salat, withholding zakat, not fasting in Ramadan, and the likes of these actions must be repented for and make tawbah and kafara. You have to make an atonement for them, right? Number two is the slave of Allah Ta'ala committing an act of injustice against Allah, like intoxicants. I don't care whether it's the gummies, the edibles, whether you smoke it, whether you inject it with a needle, whether you put it in your nose. Any intoxicant that is haram, because avoiding intoxicants, it preserves your intellect. And that's what Allah intends for you. That is the maqasid of the Sharia with those. Of course, mind-altering intoxicants make some people feel good, right? It gives them an escape. That is the escape of the disbelievers. We, the Muslims, we shouldn't even be engaged. It shouldn't even cross our mind to think about intoxicants because it does nothing for us. Just always think about this as well. If you want to feel good, you're having a hard day, you're stressed out, and you need an intoxicant, right? Think about this. Ad-dunya sijnu mu'min wa jannatul kafir. That the dunya, it is a prison for the believer, but it's paradise for the disbeliever. Why is it a prison for the believer? Because there's many restrictions. You can't just do what you want. The disbeliever, this their way out. Bro, I'm about to take these shrooms. I'm about to smoke some loud. I'm about to do this. Go ahead. That's the paradise. You're sacrificing. Every time whatever you do, whatever your thing is, every time you hit that joint, you pulling away from your chances of getting to paradise. Think about it. You have to ask yourself, is it worth spending time in the fire? Is it worth it? You have to constantly ask yourself. Remember that your body cannot tolerate that punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set up for you. You have to remember that. Never forget that. And that's what Shaitan wants from you, which we're going to get up to that next. The third is when you commit sins against another slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this one is always neglected. If you lied on somebody, you need to go back and apologize. Hey, Sheikh, I'm sorry. I lied on you, man. I ain't mean to lie to you, you know, and it took a lot for me to come and tell you this. Because you gotta be a brave soul to tell somebody I slandered you. It takes a lot of heart to do that. Right? Then not only that, now if you slander them, now who are you slandering them to? Other people, right? Now you got to go back and make sure that everybody knows that you lied on them. You see how it is when you do sins against the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? Whatever it is that you've done, you have to repay that. You know. So anyway, the fifth is rejecting procrastination of actions involving obligations. They require one to rush to take care of your obligation because dying will not fulfill one's obligations and subjugate the person to it. Only subjugates the person to the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next one after that, the next thing you want to do is do must istighfar. Seek a lot of forgiveness. As we know that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sought forgiveness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One hadith it says over 70 times a day. Another hadith said over 100 times a day. Right? So we're gonna move forward. I want to move to this last part, which is the main focus. It is the muharabat to shaitan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Inna shaytana lakum aduun, fattakhidhuhu aduun. Innama yad'u hizbahu liyakunu min ashab as-sa'iri. That know that shaitan is your enemy. He is your ops. He's your enemy. He's not your friend. So treat him as an enemy. And he only invites you in his, he only invites you in his adherence to that so that they become the companion of the Sa'ir or Ashab Sa'ir. That's another name of the hellfire. Right? This is a homework assignment for everybody. Right? Next time you see it, recite them to me. Right? Learn all of the names of hellfire. They have different names. Right? I ain't say get into the meaning and why which one is called what, but just know the names. Right? So anyway, making war against shaitan is subjugating, right? Karahu. Right? When you make war with somebody, you're fighting back and forth. It's going to be a back and forth battle, right? But you want to subdue them, right? When the people, if you read a lot of military like books or watch military, well, now you ain't gonna get this from military movies unless you watch some Asian Jones or something like that. When the people conquer a town, matter of fact, nix all that TV stuff. Read the Sirah. Read the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and read about the different battles that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when they won. What do they do when they go in there? They get rid of some people. They exterminate some of the people. But they just set it up that we're Allah Ta'ala's worship. Right? So when you subjugate a person, you're wiping out all of the reminiscences of kufr. Now, this is something that I want you to do internally, right? Internally, being that we're all under the Shahada, we want to spend the rest of our life eradicating and wiping out all of the remnants of kufr that we have in our chest. Right? So the two enemies that you got is shaitan and the nafs. Right? The shaitan is always going to be your enemy, but the nafs is different. Because you can't kill a nafs. The nafs resides inside of you. Killing the nafs is actually killing yourself in reality. So you're always going to have that desire, right? That desire where you may see a woman you want to look because it's getting warm, right? Summertime, they're going to get naked, right? You got to be resilient enough and have enough determination not to look at the women, right? And women, don't look at the men. I know y'all like them gray sweatpants, but don't look at them, right? You gotta be that dedicated, right? I know you get hungry, but you just can't eat any old thing. So you have to be able to tame the nafs. And the way that you do the nafs, you treat the nafs real bad. How you treat the nafs? You starve it half to death and you make it have sleepless nights. And how do you do that? By staying fasting and constantly praying at night. You'll get up to that level. And when you start to, you'll see internal changes. It's a secret. Matter of fact, what they call it is Velk. It's a tasting. It ain't even nothing that you can explain. If you make tahajjud, there's nothing to talk about. You just feel it. You know it. When you start talking, everybody be like, man, you sound like a demon, huh? But when you doing it, you don't feel that way. Right? So anyway, so it's obligatory upon you because of two characteristics. Because one, an enemy is never convinced nor satisfied with you having a truth until you're absolutely destroyed. Your enemy is never, unless you're gone, that enemy never feels like it's at ease, right? I'll tell you a little secret about myself, right? I got trust issues. I don't trust people that I had fight in grade school with in second grade. Up to this day, I like, man, that dude might remember that time when I socked him. Right? So this is the reality of what this is saying. The second thing is because Shaitan is naturally dedicated to having enmity towards you. He hates you, right? And is forever firmly convinced that raging war against you, convinced to rage war against you. If this is the case, how is it that you're making strenuous efforts in worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inviting people to Allah ta'ala by your words and deeds? And this is contrary to the plan of Shaitan, because Shaitan doesn't want this. He doesn't want you to do this. Remember, he asked Allah ta'ala, he begged Allah ta'ala to remain relevant amongst Bani Adam until the Qiyamah. And then he's condemned to hellfire. And he promised, he said, I'm going to take as many people as I can with me. I'm going to take all y'all with me, right? This is Shaitan. This is what Shaitan said. Now Allah Ta'ala said, you won't get my believing servants. You won't get my believing slaves, right? But he said, the one thing, as Shaitan said, that Allah Ta'ala tells us about is that Shaitan said is that I'll take many of them with me because you won't find many of them grateful. You'll find them ungrateful and denying, right? And ingratitude usually opens the door for sin as well. That's another thing that opens the door. But anyway, so when you become determined in a heart with animosity and fury, you have to have determination and animosity in your heart against Shaitan. You can't have no love for Shaitan while he is determined to destroy you. Shaitan has a general enmity towards you, in general. But with you, he has a special enmity. Along with that, and the Shaitan has two assistants in his unrelenting war against you. One is the nafs, right? And the second one is your corrupt passions, right? So anyway, he says, as you're preoccupied with other matters, Shaitan is idle. He's farag. He's like an old lazy dog. He's just laying around, just chilling, right? He's waiting, plotting on you. And he ain't got nothing else to do but fight you all day, right? Anybody ever experienced the life of having a bully that was dedicated to making your life hell?
Yeah.
And your parents will tell you what, you gonna have to face that bully one day, son. Yeah, so I say, you say you understand, and eventually one day you fight back, right? Unfortunately, what does it lead to in today's time? Eventually they go get a weapon and do something to you, right? Most people in the city don't use the police because you'll end up in trouble with the police anyway at the end of the day, right? So therefore, Shaitan, he is a bully. He has nothing else to do but make your life miserable, right? So all he wants to do is just dedicate his life to your misery because he want to see you go to hell with him. And he sees you, but you can't see him. Ain't nothing like fighting a coward who turns off the light, smacks you, and then hides his hand. Right? We used to make jokes of that when we was kids. Get your little brother, turn my, oh, and everybody runs or hides their hands and stuff like that. We used to do little stupid stuff like that. Imagine this. This is Shaitan. He attacks you. You can't see him. You can't see him physically, right? But anyway, he's dedicated to destroying you. And for this reason, you got to make war against Shaitan and subdue him. And you'll never be safe from his corruption. And if it were said, with what can I make war against Shaitan with? What can I subdue him with? He said, realize that being that That can be accomplished in two ways. The first way is that you realize that the strategy in warding him off is to do what? A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. For some people, that's like difficult. They just don't believe it. And if you don't believe it, it ain't gonna work for you. Simple words. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. You have to believe it. Matter of fact, it's not incumbent upon you to believe it. You know why? Because Allah tells you to in the Quran. Seek refuge with Allah Ta'ala from the shaitan. Allah tells you in the Quran. So you have to. So that first line. Sometimes what we do is we forget and we don't start seeking refuge until we like gone, almost like Majnun. Right? Somebody pushed you over the edge now. Now you done shot 3 people instead of 10 because you remember like, oh, Shaitan LG. While the other 3 just laid over here dead. You're like, man, what did I just do? Right? No, you got to start doing that at the onset. Don't wait until you get the motor running, get the train, the car moving or the train moving. Then to say, oh, let me seek refuge. No, at the time, at the onset. The same way of fasting, right? Fasting is like taking your clothes off, being naked. Because you have very little tolerance with other people. You're very little with people. You're very short with them. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said what? When someone is annoying you, what do you say? Inni sa'id. I'm fasting. Please, I'm fasting. Right? So it's telling you, you're naked. You're cut down to your bare minimum. You are who you are now at this point. Right? Now, he says, Shaitan is like a mangy dog that Allah Ta'ala cut loose to roam freely, right? And if you continue resisting him and driving him away, he keeps his distance, right? And if you do put up a resistance, he'll bite you. I mean, if you don't put up a resistance, he'll bite you. The second is that you realize that behaving in an upright manner to ward off and oppose the shaitan occurs after seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he alone will suffice you against his evils and not you alone. That's the other thing that we have to internalize. It is not you who's fighting against the shaitan, but rather yet it is Allah ta'ala who's assisting you and helping you. It's not you. Because many of us are subdued. The first thing shaitan whispered, if you were already a person with uncontrolled jealousy, right? Having uncontrolled jealousy in the heart is a sin, right? You have to have a certain level of gira, right? For your women folk. You're supposed to be angry, not only just your wife, you're supposed to be angry if your mother's not covering properly, right? Or your little sister, right? Or big sister in that case, sometimes, right? Regardless of how many times, boy, I'm grown. Don't ask me no. You always continue. You're a young man. You want to be that protected. Continue to say something. This ain't cool. You don't need to do this. Right? Be that person. That's a praiseworthy gift. You got blameworthy jealousy. You don't like the way the person look, man. He light skinned, man. I don't like light skinned guys. Why? Because I always wanted to be light skinned. I don't like guys with curly hair. I don't like guys who's dark skinned. I don't like white. I love white people. I don't like white. All of these things. This is blameworthy. And all the shaitan got to do, you got that thing harboring in your heart. All he got to do is just, because that's all he do, he just whisper. There go that white girl again. Remind me of that. I watched a lot of movies growing up. Vampire in Brooklyn. Remember how he whispered? I'm like, what? Anyway, he said, realize that making war against shaitan and subduing him can be done by 3 things. Being in constant dhikr of Allah Ta'ala with your tongue and your heart, right? In statements. When a person, you see a person that has something nice, mashallah, praise him. It ain't just, yo, that's tough. Yo, that's tough, mashallah, right? Because sometimes your praise of a thing can cause harm to that individual or that person's product, right? You might have a nice car. Mashallah, it's a nice car, right? Put the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala on it. You eat with dhikr. What are you supposed to say before you eat? Bismillah. There's a dhikr before you go in the bathroom, right? There's a dhikr when you come out of the bathroom. There's a dhikr before you lay down with your wife. That's how important dhikr is, right? Don't worry about, the people who's breakdancing, genuflexing and stuff like that. Don't worry about them. They're irrelevant. They're there for the distraction, right? What do you mean? That it make you feel shy and ashamed, right? Because why? Because some of them, they do actions that are blameworthy, and people rightfully, you gonna be like them goofy Sufis over there? No. The Prophet ﷺ, you ever read that little book called Hisnul Muslim? Full of dhikr. Tell you how to, what you say. It's the Qur'an, right? Dhikr. I got to make a decision. Then you got to do what? Make the 2 rakats and then make the dua. When you travel, dhikr. When you return home, dhikr. Before you put on new socks, dhikr. Before you put on your new shoes, dhikr. Your whole life is surrounded by that. All that stuff that you're talking about the goofy super, that stuff is just a distraction. It's a distraction to make you shy away from not remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to be like the goofy Sufi, so I ain't going to say this. Right? And then you don't benefit. What you do is you run out, you run out of good words to say. But anyway, the second is showing disdain and attaching no importance to the invitations of shaitan and not letting the invitations become embedded in your heart. So sometimes you might have to turn the TV off. Stay over YouTube. Right? You have to turn it off. Turn the music off. Open the Quran. Because all of these objects, they can be used for benefit as well. They can. You can learn a lot utilizing YouTube. People that can't get near the knowledge, you can broadcast the knowledge, right? But however, once they get outside of that, then everything else comes on with it too. You have to be strong enough to avoid those things. Though that's when it's the invitation to shaitan. My one teacher told me, he said, you got to make technology submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because a phone could be used for all kinds of mischief. But you can also use it for good as well. A lot of khair. Right? So anyway, so you don't let the invitations become embedded in your heart and reject them. And realize and recognize the schemes of shaitan. Right? I'm going to try to summarize this real quick because I know we only got a few minutes before Maghrib. So there's seven tricks of shaitan. One, he obstructs you. He blocks you from doing acts of obedience. Right? And the way you get away from that, if Allah Ta'ala protects you, is realize that you are in need of those acts of obedience in order to gather the provisions from this life for the next life, which will have no ending. And we talked about that extensively, a little more in detail about the hellfire, right? And some of the events that's going to take place. Number 2, Shaitan calls you to tasweef, procrastination, in acts of obedience. Inshallah, I'll start fasting in 6 months after Ramadan. No, make it a priority because you need it. Make it a priority, right? And realize, and may Allah Ta'ala protect you, realize by realizing that the appointed time is not in your hands, right? Like the young brother told us. It's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't know when we're going to die. You ain't really got time. You can't afford to procrastinate. Do you realize that everything in this dunya can be gained back at set time? Right? Think about it. As harsh as it sounds, if you lose a child, you get married to a younger wife and have another one. If you lose a wife, you can get married to somebody else. You lose money, you can go back out and make it. You lose time, you can't get it back. There's no way you can get it back, right? So these things are very important. The third thing is that he commands you to do ujlat, like rush during your acts of obedience, right? Suggested to hurry up so you could do such and such. Like some guys, you be playing a video game, like, yo, we got to pray out, we got to pray out. All right. Allahu Akbar, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. All right, so no dhikr, no recall of what's being recited, but he just jumped right back. I gotta go. That's from shaitan. That's one of his tricks. The fourth is that he commands you to perfect your worship in order to be seen of men. I can't wait to go to the masjid tomorrow. I just got my pants leg hemmed up a little higher than the other brothers. My recitation is better than his. I can't wait. Wait till y'all see me and my Zawul Jane. Right? It used to be this brother. We used to call him the Laugher in South Philly. My boy. He had 3 wives, right? And that's all he used to tell me. He'd see him, hey, Shakes, I like, son, I got 3 wives. Man. I got 3 wives. So we started calling him the Laugher. But anyway, number 5, he'll whisper arrogance and pride in your heart, saying, ain't nobody better than you. And what was the words that got Shaitan kicked out of the hellfire? When Allah told him to prostrate to Adam, he said what? Ana ahsan minhu. I'm better than him. So he gonna give you those same, he gonna give you those same, try to whisper those same words in your heart. Number 6 is one of the greatest tricks. He says to you, make strenuous effort in keeping your obedience to Allah a secret. Right? So if you're a person that could benefit people, but you keep it secret, I don't want to tell nobody know, you know what I'm saying? I don't need people knowing, that I got knowledge. No. You're here to benefit each and every one of us. You know, we gotta look at ourselves as? We gotta look at ourselves as tayammum. Right? If there's water, can you make tayammum? That's a question. No, right? But in the absence of water, you can use the earth to make tayammum until you get water, right? That's the same thing. Each and every one of us is tayammum. I'll be sitting up here until somebody better comes along and then here come the fresh wudu water. Or they may see themselves as tayammum, and the next person come and they take you in that another step further. But never see yourself as the water and the wudu all together. Just always be tayammum. You're just dirt. Because that's our origin anyway. But anyway, so that's the secret that the shaitan, the whispers, like, man, you gotta make all that effort of being obedient to Allah Ta'ala because you the secret, bro. You him for real, for real. They just don't know. Right? It's how shaitan whispers to you. And then you'll make your acts manifest before the world. My advice too for people in polygyny, since we always talk about polygyny, especially my beloved sisters, you will never be a man's everything, end all be all. Sorry to tell you that, but that's just reality. Now he's going to tell you that you believe him. Always believe him. It's an obligation for you to believe him. But what I'm telling you is the reality. Remove that feeling out of your heart. It won't hurt as much when the man does actually get another wife. Now, the 7th is that he suggests in your heart that there's no need for you to perform any acts of obedience to Allah Ta'ala. Now, this one is always common, right? Because sometimes you even get people that say, hey, I ain't even going to do this because I already know I'm going to hellfire anyway. Right? No. These are the type of whispers that Shaitan, he gives one, and put into the hearts of Allah Ta'ala's servants and slaves. So the last thing, I'll just leave these 4 things to purify one's heart from the whispering of Shaitan. These 4 things. The first one is seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Shaitan to reject the thoughts which occurs. The second is the remembrance of Allah ta'ala in the heart and the tongue. The third is reflecting upon the proofs of the people of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and stay away from like the philosophers and the Mu'tazila. Right? Stay on that path. And then the 4th thing is question the people who know the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because the Sunnah is the exemplary example of what the Quran is. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.